Welcome, everyone. We are live. It is Thursday. I don't know how the week got here so quickly, but it is here nonetheless. I, before I went to bed last night, I asked myself, what do you want to share today? And as usual, I just fell asleep. And this morning, there it was, right on my heart to share the garden of change. You see, humanity, we are so beautiful. We really are, you know. But sometimes I feel like we're always in a hurry. Yes? But if you are a gardener of any kind, I am what you would call a tired gardener. I just want to plant things and have them do its own thing, and then I'll just come along and eat it. I'm good. And then you have the other kind of gardener where they're in there every day, like the people who used to live here previous to me. And their next door neighbor, they were the talk of the town because their gardens were like people came from far and wide to see their gardens. You know what it is to bring in a special kind of dirt? Hmm? Do you know what that is to bring in ship in a special kind of dirt? That's the dirt that's in my yard. Hello? Because that's what they did. But when you want to change, you have to adopt the same attitude as the gardener. A gardener knows that it is through time and diligence and patience that the garden thrives. It thrives with care, right? You plant seeds in maybe late April indoors, or the beginning of May indoors, at least for us, because we still get snow and frost. Oh, pardon me, by May 18. After May 18, you can do anything you want outdoors, right? Any good gardener knows that you choose what you want to plant in your garden, depending on your climate, depending on where you are. I there's certain things I can't plant where I'm at because they just don't they require more than what we have. They require more heat, more days of heat. We don't get that up in here. So I can't plant those things. But things that like it cool and, that's how you choose to plant your garden based upon where you are. And then how do you prune your garden? I know I pruned my apple tree um by I pruned it twice, and now I'm looking at it, I'm like, dude, I can't, what am I going to do with all of these apples? But why am I telling you this? You see, our lives are like gardens. When we want to change, some of us want this change to happen now. Some of us want this change to happen now. But a gardener knows you plant end of May, and depending on where you live, your harvest time is months away. Harvest is October. Hello? Harvest is October. Hmm. May. So June, July, August, that's 16 weeks. That's 4 months. That seems like a long time. Yeah. My potatoes, well, I planted them in bags this year. And I'm amazed. I am amazed, truly. But you're looking at 16 weeks. You have to go out there and dig in the dirt, pluck weeds. It seems like it's such effort, yes? But look at the reward. You get to have your pantry, if done correctly, you get to have your pantry full to get you through winter, all the way through to spring again. That being said, I have to brave these mosquitoes and go outside and pick those Saskatoons. They're little berries. They're like blueberries, but they're called Saskatoon berries. They are absolutely amazing. I've got to pick them and make jam, or they'll go to waste, right? But my point to you is this: it takes time. It takes dedication. I did not plant anything out there except for the blueberries and raspberries this year and the potatoes, but everything else was already here. And so when I'm out there, granted, I get home pretty late sometimes and I'm just like, meh. And then it has rained. Oh, we're going to talk about that. It has rained incessantly for the past 4 weeks, really. Oh, yes, it has really rained around here. And so everything is lush. But also the farmers suffered a real loss. North of us, their crops were decimated by hail. Again, if we would look and observe what's happening, right? With the garden. Sometimes we get a lot of rain, sometimes we get a lot of sun. But either way, you pick up the slack. If you get so much sun, then you know you've got to water more or build something that keeps the direct sun off of your stuff, right? But in life, because we're living, right, we don't think about those things. We don't look at, oh my God, there's hail. We don't look at that in our own lives. That hail in life comes as situations. But always remember the situations are there because you are the gardener, right? Now, I've always been of the mind that farms should be small. Many farms, many people, big farms. The bigger the farm, sometimes the bigger the farm, the greater the harvest. The bigger the farm, the greater the loss. Well, it has to match. It's the principle of rhythm, and rhythm always compensates. If you have a small farm, you will suffer small damages. But if you rely upon that small farm, that could be a big loss for you because it's small. So when you're going through your life, we encounter things, right? But the things that we encounter, if we would observe them, we would know how to counter. So again, if you get a lot of rain and you don't have barrels, if you don't have rain barrels, oh boy. But you only want to catch enough to deal with the summer. Because if you gotta have that excess water and come winter, yikes. You have to make accommodations for the seasons in your life. We all go through seasons in life, but we tend to want to rush through them or grudge the season, be angry at the season. That's what we do sometimes. In actuality, that's what we do. But sometimes if we would take that as an opportunity, see, if you had no instructor in life, would you know to look to your garden for assistance? If you had no instructor in life, Would you know to look to the sky for assistance, depending on where you were? The sky is also your teacher. It shows you the season that you are in. If you're in the desert, if you're a desert dweller, that desert will show you what season you are in. But what do we do as humanity? We do not observe. You see, we look at things to judge them, but we don't look at things to learn from them. So when you are living your life and you want to make a change, well, how does one make a change? Well, how do you make a change in the garden? Well, you look at where you are. What season are you in? Are you at the beginning of the season, the middle of the season, the end of the season? Where are you? That is the principle of polarity, because everything goes through a stage. And each stage unfolds in only the way that it can. Like my apples out there have a beautiful blush on them. You can just see these pink cheeks on the apples, and I'm like, oh my God, they're so pretty, right? They really are beautiful. They're about, I don't know how big they are right now. Like, I don't know, but they're growing. I can't rush that phase. I cannot rush the change in my life, but I prepare for the change. Do you see that? How does one prepare for change? Well, first of all, you know you want to change. So you decide what you want to change to. You decide what you want to change to. And once you make that choice, that decision, well then, where are you in the season of your life? You look at that. How tired of what you're going through are you? That tells you where your season is. You know? One man said to me last night as he came through the till, I said to him, I said, well, hello. Did you have a good day? He said, I had a good day. He said, well, you look good. So I think you had a good day too. I said, oh my. I said, I did have a very productive day and it was good. He says, you're always so upbeat, right? And I said to him, well, ebb and flow. You're not upbeat every day or every moment of the day. But if you habitually choose to be upbeat, you will be upbeat more often than anything else. And he says, oh, I like that perspective. I said, well, it is the principle, is it not? That's what I said to him. And you know how that came about? Because I had a lineup. And he felt bad for holding up the line. I said, don't worry about it. Where are we in a hurry to get to anyway? And he looked out at the people in line, and not one person was cranky. Why? Because they were all entertained by their phone. I said to him, nobody cares anyway. So take your time. No sense in rushing. See, once you identify the change that you want to become, right? And you look at your life and you say, you know what? I've lived in this particular cycle for too long. I want to try something else. Once you make that determination, the second thing is define it. What is it next? If you say, I've been shy for too long, I've been lacking confidence for too long, well, then obviously you're pointing yourself in the direction of courage, because you don't want to be shy anymore, and then confidence. That's where you point yourself. Those are now the seeds that you plant. And how do you plant confidence? Well, you start by doing something and practicing it. Because the more you do it and practice it, the better you become at it. And the better you become at it, your confidence will naturally grow. You do not have to grow confidence. Confidence grows as a result of. So once you define the effect, which is confidence, the cause will emerge. You will start to behave in a different way. How does confidence behave? Now that is what you plant. And you prune it. Oh, well, how do you prune it? One, by doing it as often as you can, by rehearsing your behavior of confidence as often as you can. Because as you're doing that, you are naturally stifling the weeds or thoughts that come up that say, confidence, oh, please. Haven't you tried this for years? Look at you, confident. Who are you fooling? See that kind of a weed that makes you want to second guess your objective of confidence? It is only a weed because it wasn't what you planted, but there it is. Because dandelions, they blow wherever the wind sends them. So expect that things will arise. Dandelions don't happen by coincidence either. Because they're so light, they blow where the wind takes them. They take flight because they're light. When they're more dense as plants, the yellow, they don't blow around anymore, right? But the moment they become dry and their heads go all white and the wind blows, they can travel for miles on the wind. That's the only reason why. If you recognize that, you'll realize that thoughts are floating around in the world. Well, how do they get there? As we think, as we think, thoughts are projected from us. And if you are walking under the umbrella of, fertile soil, see that dandelion? It'll take root. But no need to fret, no need to fear. See it for what it is. It's just a thought that blew in on the breeze because somebody else is having it and projecting it outward. Sometimes, and the thing is, we don't know they're there until they grow. And then we catch ourselves speaking in a particular way and we say, wait a minute, I don't normally speak like that. That's not me. And when you recognize that it is not you, what did you do? You just plucked it out because you said, that's not me. So you weeded the garden of your mind. You did not look at it and go, oh my God, I gotta kill it. No, you didn't get aggressive towards it at all. You just said, that is not mine. And the very act of saying, well, that's not mine, it withers and dies. Because now you're not giving it attention, feeding it. You're using your attention to nurture and grow the other things in the garden. And look at something. When we garden, at least I know for me, even when I pick Saskatoons, I always say to the bush, I always say, well, thanks. They're so sweet and look at how plump they are. Oh, you did such a good job growing them this year. So that's what I say to the plant. You did such a great job growing them this year. Look at how bountiful they are. Thank you. That's all I say to it. You just acknowledge what is beautiful and what is good in the garden. Acknowledge it. And when the birds come along, because they do share in that bounty, I said, well, I'm glad I could be of assistance, sir. All that noise in the yard. And that which I do not want to share with the birds, I have in the gazebo. My strawberry bush. I don't want to share my strawberries. I do have other strawberries out there because they're unpotted. They're just wild. And that is what the birds share with me in. But the ones that I planted, I didn't want to share those. So I put them in the gazebo so that me and the chickens can eat them. Right? So in that garden, you take time to acknowledge what is growing. If you're like me and you're looking at your blueberry bush, which is now dead, but you know what? I'm like, perhaps it was scorched when we had those 2 to 3 days of very hot sun. But maybe the root is still alive. We'll see. I haven't decided to pluck it up and throw it away yet. It's too soon. So because something may not be going your way, because you may find that you're practicing your change and you think, ugh, that's taking a long time. Or maybe I don't want that anymore. Maybe it's dead. No, give it time. Be patient. Be patient. It was the same thing I did with the rose bushes. All of the dead twigs from the year before, I snipped them all off. And let me tell you, my rose bush looked like it was going to have a problem. It looked so small. But no, it blossomed into this beautiful, thick and lush thing. And I was like, wow. And when the flowers died, I cut them off. And then it looked naked. And now I have over 20 new buds forming. One just needs to be patient in their lives. Like the gardener, decide the type of change you want to have, because those are the seeds you will plant. And as it says in Habakkuk verse 2, Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 3, I think it is. I don't want to say Habakkuk 3, verse 2, but either one of those, inverted or the other. Every vision has its appointed hour. It will ripen, it will flower. If it be long, wait. It will not be late. So when you're in the garden and you think that things are taking too long, it's not that they're taking too long. They have their appointed time. Everything we do has its appointed time as well. So learn from your garden. And if you don't have a garden, that's all right. It's perfectly fine. There are other things that if we look around, we can learn from them. You don't have a garden, but you know somebody with a dog? A well-mannered dog. And when they say sit, they sit. Eh? Do you think that that training took 2 minutes? No. You had to be patient with the animal. So if you're patient with the animal, that is your first lesson, to be patient with oneself as you learn. That right there is the key, you know. Because when you're patient with yourself as you are learning, you will find that you're not walking under so much stress. You're not fretting as much. You fret less, actually. Take your time. Taking one's time brings peace of mind. And you will notice that repetition teaches. Oh, Well, that's how you train the animal, is it not? Doing it over and over and over and over and over. How did somebody find out that the crow could speak? By patiently teaching it words. So don't give up on changes you want to make in your life. You put the hand in the seed bag like a gardener. You just put your hand in the bag and you will pull out the seed that you want every single time. Confidence. Even if it has to do, yep, with needing more money to maintain your bills, to save, to do things. When someone is saving money, they are patient. I want you to bring the stock market to mind for a moment. Even though the stock market is invisibly controlled, it still follows principle. Ebb and flow. So sometimes the price is high, sometimes the price is low, right? Look at what happens. Because people are so, I don't want to say emotional, but because they do not practice discernment, because they haven't learned discernment, they will, if the market's in a crisis, they panic. They will either panic and sell all their shares. Oh, listen to it. There's no or, but they will panic and sell their shares. Unless, of course, you recognize holding things, just holding your purchase. It may dip, it may rise, but allow your purchase to remain constant. Because somebody said, don't remember who, um, when people are panicking and selling, that's your cue to buy. And that seems really cold and heartless on the surface. But how did they come to that conclusion? They came to that conclusion through many years of observation of humanity. You see, everybody watches humanity, but humanity does not watch itself. If you watched yourself, you would recognize how we behave. I'm telling you this because it actually goes hand in hand with the garden. You must see how something grows. And the only way to know how something grows is to observe it so that you can do what? Make a change based upon how that thing grows. So if you look at the market and you find that it is fluctuating all the time, let it fluctuate. You don't fluctuate with it. Observe it. That's why they can tell you buy low, sell high, right? Because they have observed. So part of changing your life is to observe your behavior. You observe the behavior so that you know how to act. Obviously, because when the market is low, you buy. Do you not? So everything that is around us, if we would observe it, can teach us many things. It can. I told you one the other day with the eagle and the crow. Everybody thinks the crow is pesky. But do you know how bold you have to be to jump on the back of an eagle? And that's what it does, and it will peck at it because it's usually flying over its nesting area, so it wants to protect its young. And so It'll jump on the back of the eagle and peck at it. But the eagle doesn't really fuss about it. Why is that? Because it knows itself. It doesn't know about everybody else. It knows itself. So the eagle, whenever it is under attack by the crow riding on its back, the eagle does what it does best. It rises above the clouds, and the air is real thin up there. And the crow can't handle that altitude. So it will drop off. Why? Because it wants to preserve its life. That is why. But the eagle, if you learn from it, it doesn't fret, doesn't freak out, doesn't do fancy acrobatics. It reserves fancy acrobatics for mating. You know what? That's a different day. But it does what it does. So if you learn from that story, be like the eagle and learn about yourself. How does it learn about itself? It grows. It's just like, how does a rooster know it's a rooster? Because it's not born crowing. It doesn't do that out the gate. It's months before it crows. And you have no idea what it is. It's months before the pullet, which is the hen, will lay eggs when they're brand new. So you can't tell what they are at a particular age. The only thing you can do is observe to see what it becomes. And when you start seeing what it becomes, you're going to recognize the pattern of a rooster, and you will recognize the pattern of a hen if you pay attention. So that when it's young and little, it has a way of doing things. What is your pattern? What is your habit? What is that thing that you do over and over and over again? Me, I have noticed, I get real mad. I get mad. And I said to myself, girl, really? Is that necessary? Like, for instance, on the radio, they were talking about a young man in the States who needed an x-ray. And it was going to cost him, allegedly, $67,000 for this x-ray. You know, we Canadians, we go to our family doctor, he writes a requisition, and you go to the lab and you get your x-ray. Boom, you're done. Bada boom, bada bing, yeah? We don't pay for that. Well, our taxes we do, but I digress. So it turns out this young man built an x-ray machine in his garage. You better hush. He sure did. Now, this is the story. I haven't done any research. I was just listening to the radio because it was playing. And I don't even like the radio playing. But listen to the story again. What made me angry, though? Because this is why I tell you I get mad easily over things that, and I'm like, Angela, why? You got to change that. Do you really like that? You like being bothered so easily by stuff? And I was like, no. And I was like, okay, so I want more peace, thanks. I just want to see and don't see, hear and don't hear, as we say in Barbados. So instead of being annoyed, I was like, wait, so he built an x-ray machine? He sure did. He took his own x-ray and he went to the doctor and dropped it off, and they were not pleased. You shouldn't be doing that in your garage, right? So when I heard that story, I thought, well, he had two choices. He could have sat down and bemoaned the fact that he didn't have any money to pay for the x-ray, or that he didn't know how he was going to get money for the x-ray. Or he said to himself, man, there's got to be a way I can get out of this. And he used what he was good at. putting things together, a regular day MacGyver, if you will. He turned his attention towards what he was good at. He said, there's a solution to this. Why should I have to do what you're asking me to do? Why should I have to suffer and not be able to afford this? He goes, there has to be a way. And because he said there has to be a way, he began to see one emerge. He didn't put the way there. It emerged. Now, if he had sat down and bemoaned his situation and complained and picketed and rioted and whatever else and burned things down, he wouldn't have come up with the idea, because that's not where he would be. That's not where he was looking. So to learn from that, turn oneself towards possibilities of success versus keeping ourselves through excuses as to why we cannot. If you look for the reasons that you cannot, you will find the confirmation of not being able to do it. Well, it's a seed. And it's a seed of what? I cannot. So the fruit of I cannot seeds is what? I cannot by action. But if you say, well, there has to be a way, that which one seeks, they find. So if you're looking for the way to success, the way to freedom, then the ideas emerge naturally. And because you have observed that, you say, oh, wait a minute. And now people would say, but Angela, the money, he still didn't get the money. You're missing the point. He didn't need money. He needed an x-ray. He didn't need money. He needed an x-ray. So this is why he built the x-ray machine. So it's not the money that you need. What is it that you actually require? So this is part of the observation. What do you actually require? Stability, security, peace of mind. Is that what you? Yes, but we want to disguise that as, oh, I need money. Really? He still built the machine. And I thought to myself, shoot, I'm not going to say it out loud because you want him to be out there doing the best, right? Because I know you're all thinking it. But just know that we're all thinking, we're on the same wavelength here. So there's observation is your friend. But we make sure that when you observe, you are observing to learn so that you can apply. I have that vine out in the yard, and I got to take a picture of it and post it. It has wrapped itself around patio furniture. It's like, oh, you're not using this? I'll take it. It's been too rainy to sit on the patio. But the bush is like, oh, I can use these. So it has anchored itself. It has anchored itself to something that to it is not moving. Well, that's the point. To anchor yourself to something means you want to secure your footing, secure your foothold, so that you're not tossed to and fro. So what are you anchored to? Are you anchored to things that will bow and break under pressure? Or are you anchored to something that is secure and will not change? And I know people say, well, change is inevitable. Well, then, if you recognize that change is inevitable, you will also recognize the catalyst of change is the law. Everything changes except the law. the law remains the same. You plant, you reap. That is law. What you plant is what you reap, is also law. And how you feel about what you plant will determine the size of your bounty as you reap it. So you see, the law will not change. The inevitable outcome of planting is reaping. Period. You plant, you reap. And every year, what do? What happens? Every year, you plant and you reap. Some things you don't have to keep planting. We call them either annuals or perennials. But they come back on their own because the seed is always there. So you see, my beautiful friends, just a little bit of observation, just a little bit of observation of things around you. Well, you have to put fuel or petrol in your gas tank, do you not? Why? Ask the man on the side of the road who has to have a jerry can filled up and brought back. Without fuel, one does not move. Your passion in life is your fuel. Oh, yes. That's why it fires you up to action. Right? What do you love doing? And you'll find that because you love doing it and you get up and you do it, it doesn't even feel like work per se, but obviously it is work because it is an action that expresses how you feel on the inside. Right? So observe today as you go about. And as you observe, what can you apply? What can you apply? You see, that's what's so beautiful. Just observe. And you see, when you start to observe, whew, I keep telling you that everybody watches humanity, but humanity does not watch itself. Come, draw a little closer. Let me tell you something. You may or may not believe me. I may lose you to the thoughts of, is she crazy? If I watch you long enough, and I know what makes you happy, and I do that thing, see how that is? I know what you like, so I give you what you like. Now, if I wanted to be nefarious, yes? If I wanted to exploit you or use you for my own gain, I would do exactly the same thing. I would watch you and do what you like so that you will act in the way I want you to act. You see how similar those things are? How gray, if you will? Indeed. So when I want you to hear what I'm saying, I give you the opportunity to listen. I tell you to come closer to me, darling. Let me whisper to you. Because it must be of great importance if I whisper it. Because it is important that you grasp this lesson of self-observation. Because when you know yourself, You know how you are going to behave in any circumstance. But if you don't know yourself and an observer knows you, now you begin to understand. You're not a pawn, my friends. You are a sovereign being. So when you hear news that is striking, when you hear things that make you shiver with fear, stop what you're doing and observe. Why would somebody want to scare you? Because to be in fear has an inevitable outcome. To be in fear of something causes one to freeze. To be in fear of something causes one to freeze, deer in the headlights. You just stop, you're like, but keep your wits about you. Understand it for what it is, a projection. Because again, remember, the seeds of the dandelion just blow where they will. But once you recognize it for what it wasn't yours. Acknowledge that, oh, that's not mine. I don't have thoughts like that. Where did that come from? And you brush it off. Why is this important? Because when you begin to see, when you begin to observe what is happening around you, right? When you begin to observe what is going on around you, you begin to see how we blindly allow ourselves to be led. Now, some were consumed with thoughts and ideas of money and more, more, more. Or, you want more of it. That's why one of my favorite lines from The Matrix is, well, what do all men with power want? More power. But why does one need power? I have the power in me already to change. I am powerful because I use that power internally. You see? But don't get it twisted, everyone has the potential to, uh, everyone has the potential to be anything. So because you have the gift of observation does not mean you take advantage of someone who does not. You teach them how to observe themselves so that they are protected. This is why I tell you, as long as you practice observation in its simplest forms, which is your garden, the birds and the bees, if you practice observation, you will become observant. And when you become observant, you will know how you will behave. And when you know how you will behave, then something happens. You're like, wait a minute. I don't want to act like that. I'm being a little bit vague right now, but I want you to read between the lines to grasp what I'm saying to you. Just observe without judgment. Observe yourself. Do not judge yourself and say, oh my God, you're still doing the same thing. Aren't you ever gonna learn? Why do you keep doing that all the time? That's the fastest way to shut your eyes. so that you can't see how to change. But if you observe it and you say, wait, I do that all the time. Oh my God, I don't want to do that anymore. You know what I want to do instead? I want to do this instead. And here's what I know. I know that if I practice this thing, it's going to become second nature and I'm not going to have to think about doing it anymore. I'll just be doing it. So I am going to be like an apple tree. I am going to take my time and practice because I know the inevitable outcome of practice is performance. I will do these things in the world. And ooh, I am excited about my change. I am excited about my practice. I'm excited about my rehearsal. As opposed to, oh God, do I really have to water the plants again? Ugh, gardening is such a chore. Do you see the difference? If you look at it as a chore, oh, 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 this stuff, he does not look at that as a chore, let me tell you. He does it with much glee. The attitude with which you look at something will determine your behavior. So if you take pleasure in gardening, even if you don't take pleasure in gardening, because some people, they just really love it. You could kind of like it, but you will recognize that what you are excited about, it's not that you're excited because you can be excited. You are excited because you know that whatever you planted, you will reap it. That is the excitement. That's where it comes from. Whatever I plant, I'm going to reap. So that makes you choose wisely. Will you plant seeds of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, and self-control? Or will you plant seeds of discord? And if you observe yourself, you'll know exactly what kinds of seeds you're planting. If you walk into a room and you always arguing with somebody, oh, Lord, what seeds are you planting? Mind you, that is not a judgment. It is an observation. You're not saying to yourself, oh my God, why I gotta fight all the time? Fighting. That is an observation. It is exhausting to fight. So what do you want to do? You want to be peaceful, right? So start planting seeds of peace. Don't let things get to you. Why would you? Okay, how do you not let things get to you? By recognizing that which is planted is what is reaped. If that thing ruffles your feathers, a little bit, that's for you. If things ruffle your feathers, they control you. Do you want to be controlled or do you want to be self-controlled? Eh? So, if you find that your feathers are easily ruffled, you say, whoa, 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 what am I planting? Agitation? Nah, I don't want to be agitated. I'll have peace, please. I'll have peace for 200, Alex. And the moment you say, I'll have peace, you say, yeah. The thoughts begin to go towards thoughts of peace. Naturally, you don't have to force it. And then you start walking in that place of peace. Because you didn't judge. You didn't say, why you always got to do that? Why you always got to be like this? No, 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 no. You recognize that you don't want to be that. And you said, no, I'll pass, thanks. I'll pass. But I'll take peace over here. I'll take tranquility, thank you. And the moment you take the tranquility, your thoughts go towards things that are tranquil, naturally. Because if you turn your mind towards, oh, this heifer, driving me crazy, the moment you turn your attention there, what happens? Thoughts And memories come back of how much you don't like that person. And then what happens to you? You get all angry. What you think is a coincidence? It is law that the thoughts stand to follow the mood. So, how does one get joy? Joy comes from knowing that what you plant, you will reap. So, joy comes from knowing, ooh, I'm going to be reaping. Ow, I'm going to be reaping. And because I know I'm going to be reaping, I'm going to choose what I'm going to plant. That is where joy comes from. Joy does not come from the fact that, oh my God, I'm so pretty. I'm so beautiful. I love myself. That is not joy, okay? Because let something happen and you're not pretty, oh Lord, you're going to be sad. But because you know, planting and reaping, planting and reaping, practice, perform, practice, perform. Because you know that those are the inevitable outcomes of what you do, then that is what you anchor yourself to. Because now you know that your change is inevitable. Why? Because you are planting the seeds of change. That is what you're doing. You're planting the seeds of change. Miss Fawn, as long as you don't spray a poison on your garden, those young dandelion greens are the best salad ever. And if you dig them out at the root, dry the root, boil it, and you have a beautiful liver tonic. As long as you do not spray your garden with Roundup or any kind of poison. That is how you can circumvent your neighbor's dandelions. And dandelions are beautiful yellow. Dry those yellow parts, dry the seeds, dry them before they go to seed, and you've got a great tea. Hello? Especially something nice and light and fragrant. A beautiful tea. What? You know what? Just thought I'd tell you that. Anyway, according to YouTube, I've been nattering on for 56 minutes. Oh, God, I've got to stop that. Great news is I've packed my lunch already, so I saved myself 10 minutes. But I do have to go get ready. Let me welcome everyone who's here this morning. And I trust that when you go out into the world today, that you will recognize if you don't plug in your car, if you don't plug in your phone, listen, this is everybody's worst nightmare, not having full battery power in their devices. Yeah, you see how we panic? Okay, then. Okay, then. So, what must you have before? Make sure you are charged up before you leave the house. Charged up with what? The knowledge of the law and how to apply it. That's what you're charged up with. You're not charged up because you're ready to fight. If you're always ready to fight, there will always be a fight to be in. Good God Almighty, give me strength. Or as my grandmother would say, oh Lord, have his mercy on me today. Bless my soul, Father. My grandmother, she was just dramatic, boy. Whew. But you know what? You had to love her. Because she was, for as cantankerous as she could have been at times, she did give the best hugs. There's something to be said about a soft, plush grandma. They do give the best hugs. They do comfort you, don't they? But anyhow, K-Frame is here in these YouTube streets. I see you. Twitter is as Twitter is. Who's with us on Fanbase today? We have Miss Fawn, my stranger that I have not seen in months. And then we have the lovely KZ, my sweet. We have Krisha. Hello, darling. Krisha. We got Ray Ray, Moon, and Dolphin Duck, and my sweet Miss McQueen. Know yourself so that you are always in control of yourself. Because the moment you relinquish control, maintain control, and control does not mean stifling. It just means you know how to walk through the day. You know how to apply the principles. That is control. This sweet lady, her name is Angela. She came in yesterday to the store, and I was busy mopping, and I saw her afro, and I said, "Ah, Angela, you didn't find anything?" She goes, "All the sale tags are gone." I said, "Because I have to take them off before close." And she goes, and I said, "Well, let me get the flyer." And she bought something, and she says, "Ah, my boy, I'm gonna kick him out." I said, "Wait, how old is he?" She's like, "He's 11." I said, "Whoa, what do you mean kick him out?" She goes, "Oh, Angela, I need a break, eh?" She goes, "I need a break." I said, "But he's 11." She goes, "Ah, but they just test you, you know." I said, "But Angela, he doesn't know any better." "Yes, he does." I said, "No, he's 11. It looks like he knows better, but they do not have the ability to express themselves just yet." I said, "Do you want to try something for me?" She goes, "I'll do it because you tell me to." I said, "Okay." I said, "When he starts to act up," I said, "Call him." I said, "Now, if you beat him, he might hesitate. So you're gonna have to tread carefully here because you don't want to beat him." I said, "You're gonna do touch therapy. He might seem to be difficult, but he's agitated. And one of the best ways to calm someone who's agitated is if they're your children. I'm not talking about no strangers. Don't hug strangers. Not yet. We ain't ready for that yet. But if your child is agitated, hold them. Not a choke hold. Hello. Hold them. Don't speak. Don't speak. I know what you think. You know what? Just hold the child. Make that something that you do whenever the child begins to act up. Just hold them. She goes, "But yes, but sometimes he talks and I tell him to hush." I said, "There's nothing worse than not being heard." I said, "And because when you silence someone, to the degree that you silence them, that is how loud they have to become." I said, "You're just creating tension in the house. Listen to him, and he'll start to open up to you." I said, "Run him a bath." She rolls her eyes. She's so sweet. I said, "Well, how good does a bath make you feel?" She goes, "I know." I said, "Well, then, it is a comfort, is it not?" That's what we do naturally when we're agitated. We seek to soothe ourselves, but they don't know how to soothe themselves at that age just yet. I said, "You're raising a man here. You have to raise one who can discern, recognize how they feel, and express how they feel because they are human. So you've got to take the time." She goes, "I'm going to try it." I said, "You make sure and come back and tell me." Why did I tell you guys that? Because we're not taught these things. How do I know? I learned mine the hard way because my boy is 16. I learned it the hard way. Well, I shouldn't say hard way. I learned it through practice because I looked at the situation. I said, "Oh, Lord." Whew. I said to him what my grandmother used to say to me: "If I put my hands on you, the police is going to come." She used to say that to me. Oh, my goodness. "If I put my hands on you today, the police can come." That's what she would say. I said, "Oh, oh, my." And so you don't want that. We want to be heard. We want to be understood. Well, then we practice gentleness. Just practice. And remember that as you practice gentleness, it is like your garden. It will flourish. So don't get mad at how long you think it takes. Just go to the harvest. Can you imagine how beautiful that harvest is going to be? Oh, let that keep you motivated. Let that harvest and thoughts of your harvest keep you inspired. Yeah. Anyhow, I have prattled on enough, y'all. I used my 10 minutes. Oh my goodness. I love you, and I will see you on the morrow. I'll see you on Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Fanbase. Ow. I love you. And a little bit loves you too, because that's why he always liked to be in the mix. I just marvel at how he looks me in the eyes, you know. I'll post a picture when I get it. But I bought him something because, as you know, he doesn't walk, and so there's a lot of pressure on that leg that he can stand on. There's a lot of pressure, and with that pressure comes pain. You just have to know that. And so I want him to be comfortable. And I was in my mind's eye, and I was like, I have these beautiful scarves, and I thought, I'm in my mind's eye and I'm putting the scarf over top of my hand and putting him on top of the scarf. And I'm like, oh, if I tie it like this, I'm like, well, if I tie it like that and cut this part out here and cut that part out here, it looks like a purse. I said, so that's what I need. I need a chicken purse. I was minding my own business, scrolling through Instagram, and this woman pops on the screen and she goes, oh my God, don't you just love my purse? What is her purse? A chicken purse. I bought one. Well, I bought two. So they're being shipped to me. Why? Because if I can suspend him, it'll take weight and pressure off of him, thereby easing his pain. That's why I didn't buy it to be cute. Cute's just going to be the outcome, but his relief is much more important to me. And so I just love the way he looks at me. He does. He's so wise. My little Roo. He really is wise. He caught Lady the other day. But then again, Lady just loves to be caught. I was saying to her, you bad girl. But I digress. Anyhow, those are the Chicken Chronicles. I love you, y'all. I'll see you on the morrow. Mwah. Peace out. Peace out.